Welcome to Ken's Corner Podcast, Season 4.
Hi, everyone. This is Ken from Ken's Corner, and we're back with the Leaf Fan Panel, and this is Trade Deadline Special. Well, we're not going to call you special anymore because last time I did, you said you weren't special, and
Nope.
JT actually said that you're flying frequent flyer miles here on Ken's Corner. But
Exactly.
anyway, everyone, welcome Paul Hendrick.
Thank you, guys.
Hi, Paul.
Joe, we seem to be talking about the same darn thing all the time on our other shows. So Joe decided, and Ken here, decided that we just kind of put this rate together, and rest of the season we'll come over here on the fan panel and talk about our beloved Leafs. Welcome to the show, Joe.
Thank you, Ken. Thank you. Good to see everybody, guys.
Mm-hmm.
We got Phil from Parts Unknown. I really love doing my wrestling shtick while I'm here. Everyone knows that I love my wrestling. Phil from Parts Unknown, Durham. And George, still out there in sunny, balmy Calgary. How's it going, George?
Not too bad. It's a little bit windy now. As they're saying, we're going to get a little bit of snow. We had some nice stuff, but we're going to get a little bit of snow now.
Okay, George, we're going to start with you because I know you're one heck of a Mitch Marner fan. Now, I know you weren't too happy with the news that came out that it was Matthew Nyes that Carolina was asking for. But then afterwards, Chris Johnson came out and said, in fact, it was Mitch Marner. And they actually went to Marner and asked him to waive his no trade. And he declined, saying he wants to finish the season with Toronto. Are you happy with the decision Mitch Marner made? Actually, he scored 2 goals just last night. Did he prove his point?
Well, I've always, like you said, I've always been a Mitch Marner fan, and you know, he's the best passer in the NHL, and he's always been a good guy, getting good guys goals by his passing, and you know, and then now he's stepping up passing. So all I gotta say is Mitch Marner, Toronto Maple Leafs, all the way.
Paul, you were saying earlier in the year, and we were actually giving you a round of applause for just saying it, the demise of the big bad Boston Bruins. And lo and behold, although they did beat Tampa Bay yesterday 4-0, and I can't say I wasn't cheering on Boston during that game, but we didn't get Charlie Coyle. He went to Colorado.
Right.
But we did get Brandon Carlo and Scott Laughton. Let's break down the moves that Brad Treliving made yesterday.
I think he fulfilled both of the club's needs. I know we could probably name another player or two that might have been there, but you know, Brandon Carlo, big right-handed shot defenseman, and Scott Laughton, more experience as well. And with the thing with these guys, they still got term, Ken. You know, they're not rentals. I think the era of rentals is done. And I like Scott Laughton. I've known him for a bit, a good friend of my daughter's, and that group that grew up at 94, 95 age born group in southwestern Ontario, southwest Toronto, and just a good player, and he's going to solidify that third line. I'll be honest, I wish Max Domi had a better season and that those resources would have been spent elsewhere. But they've got Laughton, and he's going to be here with this club for another year at least, and we'll see where we go. But the big guy, I think, was Carlo, and what he's going to bring and how he's going to complement Morgan Riley and in the big picture. And if the goaltending, for me, and this is another topic here, but the goaltending is going to be thrust into it come the postseason. They've got to be good. They've got to be a little bit better than they have been, but we're still, 4.5 weeks away from that. So I was very happy with what they did.
Yeah, I agree. Joe, you've always talked about the mic responsibilities of some of these Maple Leafs, and they don't really take ownership of when they don't play too well. Were you impressed when Scott Laughton said he needs to play better? Is that a breath of fresh air for you?
That always impresses me when I hear a player be able to reflect on that and critique their own performance. Listen, you get traded, you're on a plane, you're saying goodbye to your wife and kids, you're packing your clothes, you're jumping on a plane, you're showing up in a city met by people you have never met before. you got to give them a couple of weeks to assimilate and get your head in the game and figure out. So I wasn't expecting I was happy to see them in the lineup. But I wasn't expecting them to come in and be game, but if that happens, it's nice. But that's got to be as a player, I was talking about this with a friend. It's got to be one stressful day sitting there up until 3 o'clock as a player who could potentially be moved. And you hear the names. I mean, the Leafs they were in on everybody if you listen to the media reports. I mean, even Wayne Gretzky was going to be traded. The Leafs were in, that's how crazy it gets in Toronto for these guys. So I feel bad for the players, and I bet you come 3 or 4 or 5 o'clock when everything was done, they went because it was a crazy day.
Mhm.
Yes, it was. It was. And we'll get into the other trades around the NHL and who our thoughts on who actually won this trade deadline. Phil, Brandon Carlo, did that come out of left field for you? Were you expecting someone like Brandon Carlo?
Well, I was hoping for a defenseman. I was hoping nothing against Scott Laughton, but I was hoping that we weren't going to be going into the playoffs with Timmins and Benoit and what's the other guy, Myers on the playoff roster. Obviously, some of them are going to be there, but to hear that it's Carlo, he's a big guy. He's coming with term. He's a proven playoff performer. He scored some big goals for Boston last year. It was listen, I was being very critical of Trey Living. And then when I heard Carlo was also coming, that completely changed my outlook. I probably owe that guy an apology.
Yeah. Paul, you were talking about the goaltending. Now, do you think this is possibly because Chris Tanev is not in the lineup, one of the top 5 block shotters, if that's how you say it, in the NHL today? Do you think maybe that pans itself out once Chris Tanev can get back into the lineup?
That's a good point, Ken. Certainly, it's going to help with the club. I mean, he was leading the league, if not second, in terms of shot blocks or block shots, and it's going to help immensely. This is a good hockey club. I think they're one of 8 or 9 hockey clubs with a legitimate chance to win the Stanley Cup. Unfortunately, only one's going to be able to win. But to have him back there, there is depth on this blue line. And plus beyond this year, you look to next year, the core is going to be in place, especially on the blue line with 5 of these guys returning next year. We'll see how contracts talks go in the off season. He's going to help. They've got a shot at it. I think it is going to help the goaltending. I don't think the goaltending's been that great as of late, but you know what? It's a hell of a long season, and it's a great league. So let's get a win tomorrow night in Utah, get back on track. It was great to see Boston do what they were able to do last night. Or yesterday afternoon against Tampa, and it's going to be a dogfight all the way to the end. But you're right. They haven't had Tanev here, and they've been pretty good. Well, they've lost their last 3. He's got to get back sooner or later. But they're going to be a force. He's going to be rested. He's going to feel better. And this team's got a legitimate shot. Yes, the goaltending will be better because of the addition of Chris Tanev. But overall, we get an opportunity to support a contender. Fingers crossed as to how far they're going to go in that regard.
Yeah, I agree with you there. I agree with you. George, your thoughts on Austin Matthews? Are you going to continue picking him in your Tim Hortons pick when he hasn't scored in I don't know how many games now? Are you going to get burnt again like I do?
Well, hey, when you got a great scorer like that, and you just don't give up on him. I mean, I'm glad to see other teammates are picking it up. Look at JT scoring 2 goals, Marner potting in 2 goals. Holding up the fence for, if he get, he's just on a slump, and you can't take nothing away from him. He's a great scorer. He's been there, and I'm not gonna stop picking him, because maybe one of these times I do pick him. It gives him that chance.
Yeah, I agree. I see Austin Matthews, and I don't stop picking him ever. I don't even see any other names on that list. That's the truth. Joe, give us your thoughts on Matthew Knies today. How are you feeling about Matthew Knies?
Well, I thought if there was an untouchable on the team, he should be it. He's still got room to grow. His size, his strength, his speed, what he brings to the table. very few players, if he reaches his, continues to on this trajectory, are going to be able to do what he does. So I didn't want to see Matthew Nyes go. I was quite happy to see him stay. And I think he's a keeper for sure.
Thank you. Okay, I'm going to give this question to Phil and Paul. Robertson and Holmberg, are you guys surprised? We'll start with you, Phil, that they're still on this roster.
I am a little bit surprised, but let's be honest, they have been playing a lot better of late. Robertson is a lot more competitive recently than he was in the start of the season. He might not score, but I do notice almost every shift that he's out there, he is contributing to the team defense, and the kid can skate. Holmberg, I've never really been a huge fan of, but Robertson's kind of changed my outlook on him over the course of the season.
Yeah, and just to echo what Phil's saying, Ken, and guys, I like both players. They're depth players. This team is expected. I hope to go at least 2 rounds, and beyond that would be great. You're going to need depth to get that far. Robertson is an exceptionally hardworking player, as is Holmberg. They're depth, and again, it's going to come down to our star players up front. They've got to be our best players. If they're not our best players, then it's not going to matter no matter what. And then there are going to be some questions in the offseason. And I've been the biggest proponent of all of them, very much supporting of all these guys. But here we are, year 9 for these guys. It's time. Mike Babcock always said, you've got to learn how to lose before you can learn or know how to win. That time is up. And I've always said it before, Yzerman, Ovechkin combined 27 years before, either of them won a Stanley Cup. We don't want to part company sooner than we have to, because without those key guys, it may very well not happen. We got to show some patience. I mentioned 8-9 teams in this league, so the odds are against Toronto 8 or 9 to 1. That they're going to win the damn thing. Hopefully they do. I'm 68 years old. I was 10 the last time they won. I met Dave Keon up in Noranda, Quebec. I can go on and on. I'd like to see it done soon.
In all fairness, those other 8 teams have the same odds as we do. So
yeah, same thing. Exactly.
George, we got rid of back check, forecheck, paycheck. And actually, Treliving told him to go back check, forecheck, and get bigger paycheck in Pittsburgh. We lost Fraser Minton. A few draft picks in Connor Timmins and Connor Dewar. Were you happy with the fact that we didn't lose anyone from our main roster or considered our top prospects?
Well, I mean, Minton he was good. He was a good hockey player when he came up into the NHL. He did his job. Same with Quebec. Sorry, what was his name? I have a hard time. Go back and sorry, I have a hard time saying his name. Back check, forecheck, paycheck. He was a good player too when he came up. I'm really glad we didn't lose any of our on ice players. And I really would have been sad to lose Minton, Cowan, and somebody else for Ratnan.
Or for Shen, Minton, Cowan, Danforth. Who else was in there? Marner, Matthews, Nylander. So, we wanted them all, I think.
I am really happy with Carlo and Laughton, and I just want to say this: I'm really happy to see Calgary put a shutout on Montreal.
Yeah, that was a good game. Dustin Wolf played a great game, I have to admit. He's a great young goalie, and he's a future of goaltending for Calgary, and possibly making it into the playoffs. I am actually hopeful that Calgary will make it there. Joe, let's talk about the overall NHL. Let's talk about Brad Marchand going to Florida, guys. What was your thoughts starting with Joe and with this walk around room? And does it really even matter? Does it even, he is still week to week. It's going to be playoff time before we might see those 3 guys together. And who knows if we're playing them first round. Joe, your thoughts first.
I'm not going to lie to you. I was shocked. I didn't see that one coming at all, and not to Florida. I thought maybe Edmonton might have been sniffing around that Florida move. I just sat And Henny is so right. You know, as good as the moves we make, other teams were making incredible moves as well to keep pace. Like the parity in the league is just why now that we got the team we do? It's like, because no matter what we do, there's always teams that are doing something a bit better. When you look at that line that Florida's going to put together potentially if Marchand comes back, and I mean his leadership, his experience, he's going to get the crowd going. Man, oh man, yeah, that one took me by surprise, but I'm not going to say that's not going to give him an edge because I would love to have Marchand on my team any day.
Mhm.
Yeah, he does have 21 goals this season. Before I leave you, who won the trade deadline?
Well, I got to say, I got to like Colorado. I think Colorado, Florida, Dallas, those three teams, I think really knocked it out of the park. And I think the Leafs did as good as they could do. I think they did
Mhm.
very well, you know, with what they had. So it's going to be interesting, and it's going to come down to health. And we've got to get, I'm more concerned since the Four Nations that our best players have not necessarily been our best players.
Mhm.
Nylander and Matthews have not been putting the puck in the net with any regularity. Mitch Marner has been our best player by far since that tournament. So that says something, and I think he wants to stay a Leaf, which is great. But we got to get our big guys going. Nice to see Johnny T get a couple, but we
Mhm.
got to get Matthews and Nylander going on a regular basis. They've been off as far as I'm concerned.
Well, I have two rebuttals for you, Joe. One, Colorado actually changed 9 players, including both their goalies this year. Is that going to work? And does it work very often, Paul, that they change that much and actually win a Stanley Cup? And what was the other one? Oh, at least we're getting bottom 6 scoring finally, Joe. Okay, Paul, I'm going to let you go with your thoughts on Marchand, who won this trade deadline, and what I just rebutted on Joe
Mhm.
up there.
Well, to echo what Joe said as well, I would have liked to have seen Marshy in the Western Conference, and I would have loved seeing him in Vancouver, just given what happened.
Hmm.
It would have been just great to see that. But he's here, and I don't think they're going to see him until the playoffs. It's going to be tough getting back in and hitting the postseason at stride, but he's still going to help them. I think Colorado won. I think Florida's a close second. I think Dallas got the best player in terms of Rantanen. But as far as the changes in Colorado, anytime you've got a foundation piece in Cale Makar and you work around that, you're going to be fine. If we're having an NHL pool, like this is before his performance last night, Cale Makar is the first guy I'm picking. Maybe Draisaitl second. Just looking at teams that are going to get some length, but Cale Makar is just outstanding. I'm so happy he's Canadian when we look ahead to the Olympic Games coming up on that big open ice in Milan. And it'll be a much different tournament than what we saw at Four Nations. But Colorado first. And again, the Leafs have, I think, did the best they have, but the best they have is pretty damn good. Pretty
Were the
damn good.
Leafs the best in Canada? Paul?
I'm thinking about this.
That's a hard one, bud.
Yeah, I
Winnipeg's
think they
tough to
are.
beat as well.
Yeah, Winnipeg is, yeah, you know what? You might have to go Winnipeg 1, Toronto 2. But we're not going to see Winnipeg unless it's the Stanley Cup final. So go beat yourself up.
Yeah,
And in the
exactly.
East, finish
Yeah.
first and not second or
Winnipeg's got a
third.
gauntlet to go through as well. There's some good
Yeah.
teams out there in the West, that's for sure. And wouldn't it be great if Colorado and Dallas could meet off in that first round? And then maybe LA can take it to Edmonton finally after 5,000 years.
Yeah.
George, your thoughts? Who won the trade, and did Toronto win the trade in Canada? Did we win the trade deadline in Canada? Were we the best team? Did we get the what we wanted the best? I guess is what I'm trying to say. Go ahead.
My thoughts is the same as Paul and Joe there. Dallas, Colorado, and as much as I hate to say it, Florida did get some good guys. Um, I'm hoping the ant doesn't do anything for them, but it is what it is. For Canada getting the best trades, I was scared. I was really scared. It was getting close to the trade deadline and we weren't doing anything and I was scared. But I'm glad we got what we got. And I think, yeah, we did do pretty good. Carlo, I seen him last night with that big long stick on a couple of guys, and I think he'll fit in right good.
Yeah, well, he was coming into Toronto a plus 129 in his career.
Yeah.
Not so good in the first 2 goals, but he did end up sawing that up and being in on 2 goals. Phil, I'm going to let you chime in on everything that everyone's been saying here.
I think it's pretty consensus across the board that Colorado, Florida, Dallas probably picked up the best players that were available. Like I said earlier, I like the moves that we did. Ottawa also picked up a couple of good young kids that if they can catch on there, I think that they'll be super popular. As far as like the best team in Canada, obviously the way that Winnipeg has played this year with and in front of Hellebuck is just they're absolutely unreal. Picking up Shen and Tanev, you know what I mean, that really solidifies their D and their bottom 6. So I think that they're going to be pretty tough.
Yeah. Okay, guys, let's get some game time predictions. I'm not going to, usually I go ahead a couple of games, but you know what? 2 games from now is the Florida Panthers on Thursday night. So I'm not going to put you guys up to that test. Obviously, we all want the Leafs to come out on top in that game, and hopefully we got our best game going. Let's get our predictions starting with you, Joe, for Toronto versus Utah club, I guess they're called still. What is their name next year, guys? Is it, do you know, Joe?
I don't think they've announced it yet.
It's probably Mammoth.
Yeah, I don't know if they've announced it either. Okay, game time predictions, Joe.
Well, the Leafs are going to get back on track, and I'd like the Leafs to have a week at home with lots of practices and get rested because they've not looked good to me in the last couple of weeks. They're out of sync. But now that we've got our players set, Tanev's supposedly coming back. Let's get the goaltending back on. So I think we're going to get back on the right track against Utah. You want to score?
Yes, please.
Oh, okay. 4-2 Leafs. How's that for?
And Paul, your turn.
I thought Joe was going to say 6-2 Leafs, so I'm going to go 6-2 Leafs. And
Wow.
hey, you know, just before, we can't forget Tampa and what they've done. That's going to be a very tough out. Listen, they're not going to have depth. They don't have a first-round pick, I think, since 2028. But they're going to be a tough out. It's going to be a hell of a first round, as it always is. But initial question, Monday night, 6-2 Leafs.
Thank you. George.
Well, I'm going to say 5-1. And Matthew scores.
Thank you. I hope so.
He scored against Vegas 2 games ago, so he's not been shut out.
There you go. Phil.
I was going to say 5-2. I was going to go in the middle of Joe and Paul there. Like everyone else is saying, get these guys a win, get them back home, get them some rest. They've been on the road quite a bit lately, so hopefully we can move on from here.
Okay, I'm going to go 4-1. Last question of the day. I know it's 20 games away. If we can't make that number 1 spot, who do you guys want to face? Florida or Tampa Bay, Joe?
Come on, Joe.
Well, I say bring on the Panthers. Face them right off the hop. Let's slay that giant, and we've beaten Tampa. If Florida's the favorite, let's take them on right from the start.
That means Tampa Bay ends up first. But yeah, it could happen. Paul, your thoughts?
I like to slay the giant. I was hoping the Bruins would still be around, so that possibility could happen. Yeah, but they had a pretty good record against Tampa this year. So as much as I'd like to see the series against Florida for entertainment value, I think the series against Tampa will be a whole lot of fun. Club's beaten them historically. It'll be good to see Mitch piss off his old Team Canada coach and Coop. That'd be fun.
Yeah, that would be. Honestly, I have a bet. I won the bet because the Leafs won the season series against Tampa Bay with Mr. Frank Abadandalo. But I guess there'd be another burger on the line for me there if it was Tampa Bay. George, who would you want to face in that first round?
I definitely want to see. I want to see the Lightning, so we can get rid of them real quick, and get on with the next. Yeah, so I'm saying Tampa.
And Phil, you get the last thoughts here.
Neither. I hate them both. I'm glad Boston's crap. we're going to finish first overall and we're going to get a wild card spot. So then Florida and Tampa can beat the absolute crap out of each other and we can pick at the bones whatever's left over.
Okay, you know what? I got some extra time, so just for the fun of it, let's talk about bottom 6 teams. If we end up first, Joe, who do you want to face?
I'd love to face Ottawa.
Oh.
I missed those series back in the day with Sundin and Alfredson and Tucker and
Yeah.
Gary Roberts. Those are my favorite playoff series. They were wars. I would love to see that rivalry heat up again.
Paul?
Totally agree. Montreal wouldn't be bad either, guys.
No.
Either way, Battle of Ontario, Quebec, Ontario, either way, we couldn't lose.
Yeah, you know what? I have to agree with you guys. George?
Not a big fan of Kachucks, so I really don't want to see him. Maybe we'll go Red Wings. Are they still in this spot?
Red Wings and Columbus are still a possibility.
Yeah.
Well, let's go Red Wings.
All right. You know what? I think we fare pretty well against the Red Wings, but let's not bet against the Steve Yzerman team. Phil, you get the final thought again.
Well, just like the Joe and Paul there, I think getting that Ottawa-Toronto Battle of Ontario back would be something to behold. Toronto, Montreal, it's always unbelievable. I think Ottawa would be must-see TV.
Yeah, I think all of Ontario would be watching that day, and Doug Ford better be voting for the Leafs. But anyway, guys, thank you so much. I do want to put out there that Joe and I work with local junior team, Stouffville Spirit, and they won their first game last night, 3-0, with our Kyle Downey, our goalie, getting a shutout. So it's actually a second straight shutout. They're playing right now as we speak. So let's go Spirit. Keith Acton's aligned with that team, just so you know. And the Toronto Scepters have, although they lost today to the Minnesota Frost, have been on quite the roll up the standings. So let's go Scepters as well. Guys, have a great day, all right? Thanks you everyone. So much, Paul Hendrick, Joe Moyer,
Thanks,
Phil Garbett, and George Garbett. Thank you, guys. My name's Ken Judge from Ken's Corner Podcast. Thank you for joining us with, what are we, Fan Panel Trade Deadline episode. Thanks, guys.